welcome to Roll for Geekiness. Jonathan here in the Metal Storm Arms Studios, and as you can see, maybe if you've followed along with us in the past, I'm all dressed up in the undergear for my Elysian Stormtrooper, so we're back at it. If you were following along last year, you know that I had put this project on hold so that I could make sure that I finished my Colonial Marine Smart Gunner in time for New York Comic Con. Go check out some of those videos if that sparks your interest. But we're back at working on my Warhammer 40k Elysian Stormtrooper build. Last we left off, I had templated the vambraces as well as the greaves and thigh armor plates for you guys. Those videos should be linked below as well. And what else do we need for this build in terms of armor? If you look at some pictures, stick one here perhaps, we can see that there are some plates that hang off the belt that protect the waist area. There's some shoulders pauldrons that we haven't gotten to yet. And those are the two things we're going to do today. You also see, obviously, there's that big piece of armor that covers the body here, the cuirass or the carapace, whatever you'd like to call it. We'll do that in a separate video. And a helmet, which we're actually not going to do for this project. I hate to disappoint if you're looking for templates on helmets. I know that there's plenty out there that you can go look for, so I know I'm not going to leave you hanging too much, but this is going to be a veteran Stormtrooper who's going to be wearing his fancy beret, and I think actually what I don't plan to have ready by Cosplay America, but what I do want to eventually add onto this project, so stay tuned for that too, will be fun prosthetics of a big scarred eye and a bionic eyepiece. So that'll let me start playing with some prosthetic appliances that are a little bit more involved than the eyes I've done for Bato from Ghost in the Shell. Play with some latex or other materials like that and get some really cool scarring effects. So I'm kind of looking forward to doing that in the future. But today we're going to template those armor parts that I mentioned before. So we're going to start with the easy ones first. There are a couple plates that hang off the belt, and we can see that there's one right in the front, and then there's two that are on the sides of the hips. And the one in the front is longer than the two on the sides. So I actually mocked these up real quick. They basically look like this and like this. And this is the one for the side. I made 4 inches tall, and the one for the front is 6. So if we show how those hang on the pistol belt, they're going to hang like that, and then like that. And while I think if we look carefully at the reference images, it feels like this one is longer, we do have to remember that there is that thigh plate that we made for here, and we don't want them to be bumping into each other. We also have to remember that, you know, there are bodily needs that need to be seen to at cons, and so if this is a little bit easier to move out of the way to take care of those things, all's the better. And that on the side, you know, if I make this just the 4 inches, then it's not too hard to move it out of the way and get stuff out of my pockets, like a room key or car keys or things like that. So I like those. Those are also, yeah, sorry, those are 8.5 inch wide for the front piece, and I went with 8 inches long for the side piece. Feel free to adjust those. Everybody's body shapes are different. Or you might feel like these look too small, too big, whatever. And you should be making this armor to fit you. In terms of how these are going to end up fitting on that belt, we're just going to do some easy nylon loops on the back of these when all is said and done. We'll probably show those more when we actually get to some construction videos later. So those are pretty easy to template up. So shoulder's a fun bit to try and put together because it's got a lot of, is compound curves the right word? I don't know. It's got some concave bits. It's got to fit over the point of the shoulder. it's not a matter of simply taking a piece of foam and just curving it. We've got to get that sort of cup shape in there too. So first thing we need to figure out is it's got to cover from like here to here, right? So measure that. For me, I've got about 8 inches here. Now remember, you don't want it to be too long or it's going to end up hitting the side of the armor, the body armor that we're going to build here later. But like we've also talked about when we're templating stuff, if you're going to want to take into account the thickness of the material that you're working with, and ultimately it's better to make the piece a little bit too big and trim it than to make it too small and find that you have a gap here that you're not happy with. So if we err on the side of taking a slightly bigger measurement here, we can fix that later. So let's start with that measurement. All right. Again, proving that we can do this with just some scrap paper that we've got around the shop. We don't need anything fancy. Let's cut this to 8 inches wide, which means we're just taking 1/2 inch off of this 7.5 by 11. All right. Ta-da! It fits. Wait, no. There's that point of our shoulder too. So the next thing we need to do is create a way to get that top curve of the armor. So let's find our middle at 4 inches and mark that, because we're going to need to know where the middle of this is. I'm just going to draw in that line for reference. Now let's try 3 inches and see what that does. I'm just going to cut three inches down that line. Now that's going to let us put a bit of a curve in this thing. And you can make that curve tighter or narrower depending on how much we overlap the paper here. Let's see. Let's try. Let's try like 2.5 inches and see what we think of that. Okay, it's not too bad. It comes up a little. It's coming up a little higher here than I think I want. Obviously, we're going to get these curves here by doing some heat forming of the foam later, and I think we can do some heat forming and stretching there too. Now, you'll see. Obviously, we end up with a sort of conical point here, which is not what we want. But I think we'll be able to sand that down with the Dremel later and sort of smooth this whole thing out so that it looks rounder. The next thing we want to do is get rid of these points out here. So I'm just going to use the width of my ruler. I'm going to match up those 2 points, my straight edge, make a line, and I'm going to lose a tiny bit of material there, but that's okay. There, so now as a straight line up here on the top. Yeah, you'll see. No, you won't. I need to fix that. So you'll see though, now we've got a different problem. I straightened that out a little bit, but now we've got this point here. We don't want a point here. This whole thing ends up needing to have more rounded curve to it. So let's do that. Let's see, let's try about 3 inches. Mark a point there, mark a point here, and, right, where did our center point go? Our center point is, again, so you can sort of see where the points are, the parts that overlap, so we can measure that. It's about here. So yeah, I need it out here. So yeah, let's just kind of work a pretty gradual curve into that. Take those points off. Again, once we flatten this thing back out, we can fold it in half and make sure that these curves are symmetrical. Similar to how we did when we figured out the tops of our boots, on our greaves, and some of those other curves that we put into spots. Alright. That's looking a lot more like what we're looking for, doesn't it? And it's also pretty long. I don't think I want it to cover quite as much of my arm. So we'll have to look at some reference photos to figure out exactly where we want to cut that off. And also, if we look at our reference photos, we see that this isn't a squared corner. There's more of an angular corner to this too. But in terms of just coming up with a pattern for a pauldron, this is a really quick and easy way to do that. And you can make this shape more closely match whatever it is that you're building. Ta-da. Again, then to put this on our material, we will again, like I found that center point already, we'll match that up with this point here, and we can just snip, and that'll give you a flat template that you can then, again, then we would make sure that it's symmetric, that the curve is symmetrical by folding it in half. And then you can put that on to your foam. And cut that out, and you're good to go. How's that going to get mounted onto the body armor? Probably with some nylon strap in here. Maybe we'll put a clip or something in there so you can take it off and on. But that should serve our purposes for shoulder pauldrons for our 40K drop trooper. But also for anything that you might need shoulder armor for. So that's it for this one. Next time you see this, it'll be on pieces of foam that we'll be putting together. But you'll probably, before that, be doing a template for the body armor itself, as well as the backpack that goes with it. And so I hope to see you in the next one.